computer. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Chapter 15 in our Meet Our Honors Faculty series. I'm very excited to be joined today by my colleague and friend, Dr. Doug Julien, who's a professor of English here at A&M Texarkana. And I will point out, I don't know if he's going to mention it or not, but was largely responsible for creating the honors program, which was the predecessor to this honors college. So we are all eternally in his debt for that. So thank you, Dr. Julien. Okay, so we're very excited to have you, and I'm going to start with our standard questions, and we can stick to those, or we can wander off, whatever. So first question, pretty straightforward. Where are you from, and what brought you to A&M Texarkana?
The most obvious answer is they were hiring.
Good answer.
As you know, so I'm originally from the great state or not so great state of Illinois, depending on how you slice it. We believe in the policy of vote early, vote often. And at one point, I was thrilled to know that I think of the past five governors before Pritzker, four of them were in jail. And it cut across the party lines. It didn't matter if you were a Democrat or a Republican. If you were in the government, you probably, in governor's office in particular, you were headed off to jail after you were done. But I'm from East Peoria, which is central Illinois, about equidistant from Chicago and St. Louis. In the middle of nowhere, Peoria used to be a very big, important town for vaudeville and will play in Peoria. And in many ways, I will claim both of these folk, Sam Kinison and Richard Pryor, both from Peoria, having Peoria ties, and it explains a lot of my own behavior. Um, How I got here then is a trip through Eastern Illinois University, then to Western Illinois University, then to the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and was looking for a job, and indeed they were hiring. The job market was really bad back then. It is even worse now. So,
Yeah, as a historian by training, we share a lot of the same issues as our English colleagues do. But I will say Peoria, I grew up knowing Peoria quite well because it was the first level in the arcade game Rampage.
yes,
Place
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
to Peoria. So there
yeah.
you go,
No, we
Peoria.
were all very excited when that happened.
It's a great game. Okay, and that was you got here the same year I did, so it was
Yeah, 2010.
2010. Wow, it's a long time ago now.
Yeah, no, I
Uh,
know. Looking around, in some ways, right? I think when we got here, they were talking about, someday this will be a university, and there's you interviewed in the shell of the UC along with me, I'm assuming.
yeah,
Your
actually, I
interview,
interviewed at the old campus. I interviewed at
yeah,
TC.
your interview actually happened at the old campus, but then they walked you over to see the shell of the UC, the STEM building, which is now being added on to. They couldn't figure out how to pay for the third floor. There was fighting over that with that I never really comprehended or understood.
Yeah,
Um, and then there was the physical plant, and that was it.
that was it. Very different, as you can somewhat see behind me. And
Yeah.
this is
No, I
before
know. And I was
precinct.
walking onto campus, and every once in a while I go, it is slowly becoming more of that university they promised, but
Not so slowly right now. It's a bunch of stuff
no, yeah,
going on.
well, it was very slowly for a long time.
It was.
The
All right.
pace has picked up.
What got you interested in your discipline? Or I know in your case it's a bit different because you went across disciplines because you're very
Yeah,
fancy.
no, it's so uh, I have a bad relationship with English.
Good
As
thing
a
to hear from an
professor
English
of English.
professor.
I do. No, it's funny. I was I'm teaching a capstone currently, and the number I was talking to my wife Jack, and it was had this interesting moment that the number of people who've had the joy and pleasure of reading beaten out of them is amazing, right? As I'm sort of listening to these English majors sort of do their academic autobiography, and all of them are talking about this initial love of reading. And mine was built around Fond du Lac Park District and reading books and being part of summer reading program. And I read voraciously and I loved it. And was picking what I wanted to read. And then as I went through high school, it just absolutely got destroyed.
Yeah.
I didn't want to read Silas Marner. I didn't want to read nothing but Puritans. I got tired of it. And I was just like, this sucks. And I'm going to public school, and my neighbor who's going to the private Catholic school, they're reading Catcher in the Rye and Catch 22 and Kurt Vonnegut, and I'm reading another Puritan novel, and I'm just like, good Lord, this sucks. And then like the got to the upper division, and then it was like you can read The Hobbit, and I was like, no,
Oh,
no. And the classics were kind of lost on me, and they were uninspiredly taught. And you know, the people that were teaching them fervently loved them, but I just, um, so I had no idea that I wanted to do English. I went down to Eastern, and I was a pre-optometry major. Well, look, the decision calculus was I can do the maths, I can do the science, I'm okay at it. I'm not the best student in the world. I'm not the worst either, but I'm not getting into med school, nor do I want to put my hands in other people's bodies. We sort of ruled out dentistry. There were all kinds of things like, okay, baby boomers are going to get older, they're going to need glasses, and this is the thing where I'll just do some air puffs. I don't have to put my hands in another human's body in terms of medicine, and I can make I would have been bored. And I remember distinctly being in the basement of some building, trying to remember class, genome, and phylum of all these dead animals. That was part of the thing for this zoology course that you had to go in and, you know, identify the animal and its class and its genus and phylum. My friends are out having a good time, and I was like, this sucks. I hate this. And at the same time, um, I was doing quite well in my English classes where I was doing not well in any of them.
right.
The irony of I think my entire education up to this point, and the idea that I got tabbed to start the honors college here, is I could not have been an honors student at Eastern Illinois University by any measure. And so. So then I found literature, and I found two guys, and should honor them, John Guzlowski and John Loudon. And one of them was teaching non-Western lit and introduced me to my first African novel. And Guzlowski introduced me to Pynchon, and was just this sort of experience where somebody was in front of a classroom teaching things that I enjoyed reading and made them even more enjoyable through analysis. And so went down that path. I thought I was going to teach high school English, you know, work on the masters while you teach. Eastern had a strange setup of independent study so that you did a lot of classroom observations and readings and whatnot. And I would go into the local Charleston and Effingham and Mattoon high schools and see the teaching and go, oh my God, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Right. My mouth. B, the things I want to talk about, and C, playing disciplinarian cop. Oh,
Mhm.
good Lord, no.
That's tough.
Absolutely not. So that ended that dream, and it became okay into the master's program. And I finally got accepted after a year of working at Orkin and a whole bunch and Chinese waiter and all kinds of really crappy jobs. I sold vacuum cleaners door to door.
Right.
Um, right? I got into my master's program on probation, and you know, really actually knew what I wanted to do, and I was ultimately ended up having questions that were outside of literature, and so off to the University of Minnesota and a program called Comparative Studies in Discourse and Society. And so I'm interested in music and art and all the other things besides just literature. So a lot of critical theory philosophy that looks at the humanities. And that was that they had answers that I was looking for to bigger questions.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's, yeah, there's a lot there.
Does anybody else have the
Um,
story of this narrative of how they ended up?
oh, very similar, yeah. Some did. It is always fascinating, and that actually kind of dovetails us into the next question, which is why you wanted to join the honors faculty. I mean, obviously, having started the honors program, it's probably a natural fit, but the path that faculty take to honors is interesting. I'd say it's sort of equal parts. I've been a an overachiever, kind of go-getter my whole life, and always wanted to, go above and beyond, which is what we want out of our honors students. Versus those of us who also like I did most of my poor performance in high
Yeah,
school rather than college, so it was a bit cheaper for me. But it was more like, no, I was just a terrible student until I found this thing over here.
yeah.
So, what attracted you to join the honors faculty, by the way?
Well, as you know, I was conscripted.
You were busy.
I probably wasn't back at the in Morris, Minnesota, where Jack and I came from, for a few days after sort of accepting, right, that I'll be an assistant professor at A&M Texarkana, and I got a call from the dean like, "Hey, we'd like you to start an honors program if you're interested." And it's like, well, I guess I am.
Yeah.
And so I
No,
kind
thanks.
of
I'm
got,
fine.
yeah, no, I'm good. I just want to come in and, just sort of ease my way in. No, it was not going that was not going to be in the cards for me. So they were like, I was like, well, I guess I have to figure out what an honors program is. Um, and so yes, I got conscripted. I think, but I think you have taken it to, as I've said in other places, and nice to have it recorded. You've taken it to places that I never imagined that it would get to. There's some bare bones of things that you sort of kept and expanded, and I was just trying to figure out what to do with it. I think the two things that I think are interesting about it, other than right, I just sort of got conscripted and then saw the value in it are probably two things. The first is that it was my first introduction into the idea of occasionally I will say Texarkana instead of Texarkana because people, not because I think it's a cant
Yeah.
necessarily, but because I think that pervades what happens around here. There's so often I
Mm.
think the idea is you can't do this or you can't do that or can't, and everyone sort of tries to tell you that it can't be done. And the honors colloquium is exactly that. The number of faculty who told me either A, we already have it,
All
and
right.
I was like, okay, cool. I'm sorry, I don't mean to tread on any toes. When was the last one so that I can see? And they're like, oh, that was 3 years ago. I was like, okay,
We
so we
had it.
have it, but it doesn't actually function,
Right. No one does
or
it.
I'm told no one it won't work.
Right.
Faculty won't do it, people won't attend, you can't. And it was odd to me to find that, right, this
Mm.
idea of can't. And I think honors has always existed as a place where we're asking, and whether it's your directorialship or the people who are engaged in are trying to figure out what can we do
Yeah.
in spite of being told that we can't. I think the other thing that I would have done if I could do it all over again is think less about the idea of, you have to have this GPA or have to have this to get in, right? All those kind of things. And those are the measures that people use all the time.
Mm.
I would have tried to figure out a way to sort of figure out giving bonus points to somebody who is inquisitive about something. So I think
Mhm.
to your point, right, that idea of like what got you to your discipline, what got you into the honors program, both of these things are asking what made you interested. And
Yeah.
so the idea that I would have had and tried to implement in some way, shape, or form is okay, so you got a poor GPA, but you can express interest and curiosity and intellectual, and you're trying to find answers to these things. That's to me where honors lies,
Yeah.
not in a number, not in excellence per se. Does that happen? Sure. But it's not really there that I think the best honors interactions I have are. They're in that sort of realm of I've got this question I'm trying to answer.
Yeah, I think that, that certainly is an approach that, to some extent, I inherited and we've tried to build on, certainly, that, like, yes, there is a GPA requirement. It's
Yeah.
not a 4.0. I mean, it's like you have to have
No.
some, you have to be doing okay. You have to be
Yeah.
doing well. But the students who are successful in honors are the ones who are curious, who are interested, who are motivated, right? And so that, again, I'm very, it's almost like we talked about these questions before, but we didn't. I
We
sent
may
them
have
to
been
you
talking
all of
about this since 2010, my friend.
I was going to say, I sent you the questions about 4 minutes before the interview, so my apologies. But the next one does sort of dovetail. It's what would you like students to get out of their honors experience, or even broader, like, their experience in general?
Yeah, I'll return back to the same. I should have looked at the questions that you sent. Well, no, I think the idea is that I think the honors builds that idea of we've always been sort of asking students like, what is it that you're interested in?
Yeah.
Right. How do you then elevate that interest into something more than just a salient interest, right? I spent a ridiculous amount of time instead of looking at your questions, I was down the rabbit hole of trying to understand again how mirrors work.
Hmm.
Right. And just because it became, well, I know it's stupid, but it became one of those things that I was like, how do I explain that we don't really understand how mirrors work?
Okay.
We think that we do, right?
Right.
A mirror does not flip left to right.
Sure.
It just does. It doesn't. It's back to front is all that it does, and that there's no actual reflection. That instead it's our own brain sort of thinking about it. But how do you understand that when everything tells me that the mirrored version of this, I raise my right hand and my left goes up in the mirror, and you're like, well, it's the inverse, right?
Yeah.
The writing is reversed. Why how? And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's because you just don't understand the basic function of a mirror. Well, same thing as the idea of most people don't really understand how toilets work. They think that they do, but not really. And I don't mean
Yeah.
just necessarily the you push the handle down and you have to understand the point. But why doesn't the water just fall out?
Right. Yeah. How does physics work, basically?
Right. Well, there's answers to these things, but I can't
Yeah.
really, like, there's a limit to how far I can explain.
Yeah.
I can say, okay, I understand that mirrors are not actually doing an inverse, that they are actually just showing, but then it's something different. Right. The idea that I would say is, do I really understand thing if I can't explain it to my grandma?
Hmm.
Right. Those kind of ideas, like, okay, so I know something, but that's entirely different from really understanding it.
Sure.
Right. And I think that's the thing that I'm trying to help honors students when they come to me, that they're like, I want to do something value added in your course.
Right.
Okay, cool. What is it that you're interested in? And they're like, well, no, but what, like, no, 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 no. What I am interested in is largely irrelevant.
Right.
The question becomes is, are you interested in something that I can then sort of help you figure out? The last semester, a student wanted to, do a project, and I was like, what are you interested in? It turns out to be environmental science.
Cool.
Like, cool. All right. Well, the stuff that we're doing in the class is not really that, but here, what if you look at this, and what if you look at this, and here's over this story over here, and how can you, right? And you find ways that they can start answering the questions that they want to answer.
Yeah.
So that's the value added, I think, that I'm always trying to get for an honors student, is not necessarily to give them some piece of information, but in what way can I help them find the answers that they're trying to understand?
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Which is
And
why I love what you're doing with the colloquiums, by the way. The
oh,
fact that always have been trying, and minor success, right?
yeah.
Of getting students presenting. That's the coolest thing on wheels, man. That idea, because again, it fits into the dynamic that is really valuable. It's not merely I know something well enough that I can now both say it's interesting that other people might want to know, but I can also explain it.
Yeah.
A much higher level understanding slash knowledge base.
Yeah. I always love watching students present
Yeah.
their work. It's quite invigorating. Is there anything you wish you knew as a student? I mean, obviously you knocked it out of the park at Southern Illinois or Southeast
Eastern,
Illinois
yeah,
or
no.
Eastern
Um, yeah, man, I wish I had known. The biggest thing I think that might have helped, even the idiot that was me, doing in college what you did in high school.
Illinois.
And that's code. Both of us know what that means, and other people can just think about it. The is get to know your professors.
Yeah.
I never really, I mean, I'd heard it. And again, that's the same kind of thing. The difference between knowing it and understanding it.
Yeah.
I knew it, right? People would tell you, don't be a number, go introduce yourself to the professor, right? And I thought in some ways the idea of being in class, raising your hand or those kind of things, it's an entirely different experience being in class with somebody and then also showing up to their office and asking a question, or having these sort of, that removes that weirdness between the sort of pillar of Dr. Julien and student number
Right.
54217, right? And that idea of those interactions, how powerful they are, both for student and for faculty, that I just didn't comprehend, and didn't pick up until much, much later, and became, I think, a little bit more, as much as I have a huge arrogant ego, I didn't realize that I could allow my ego to sort of take a few hits. And well, right, it's big enough. It can withstand a
It'll be
lot of
fine.
damage, man. You're going to take a long time before you penetrate the shield wall of my ego, with your with your comments. I'm going to go into a classroom sometime today and talk for an hour and 15 minutes about things that nobody else but me wants to hear. Not entirely true, but in some
Yeah.
cases it does function that way.
I get it.
Like, this is really important, and I'm going to do it day after day after day, year after year after year. Walk into rooms where people are like, "No, I didn't read. Man, I don't want to be here. I have to take this class because it's in the core." And
There you
And I'm gonna
go.
be like, this is great. You really need, I mean, that with that kind of ego, you could learn to withstand uh some sort of step back of like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not the smartest guy in the room. And I think that's the other thing is that I don't think students realize that we learn from them.
Yeah.
Right. It's I'm supposed to be the one, the subject who's presumed to know. And I do know a lot of stuff. But I try to tell them all the time, I already know what I think. I'm not here to tell you what I think necessarily. I'm here to find out where I'm wrong and what you guys got to think a different way.
Yeah.
I already know what I think. Nothing's going to change if I just sort of sit in my hovel and think about the things. I'll just constantly stay where I'm at. The only chance I have to move forward is y'all.
I remember in high school as I was pulling myself out of the abyss, as it were. I had a teacher, yeah, Mary Lou Brewer, rest her soul, who said
Yeah.
teaching is the best educator. And I
Yeah.
didn't quite understand what she meant until I started teaching. And then I was like, oh, I get it.
She's very right.
Um, but yeah, part of why we structure honors the way we do is because we try to encourage and incentivize students to go chat with their faculty about what they're interested in. And yeah, it's been great, been great
Yeah.
success.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts before we get
I
out
don't
of
know
here?
if what time we got? Do I
I
need
think you
to?
might be number one right now. You might
Yeah.
have gotten into the longest interview.
All right. I just want to make sure that, I hold a title.
Filibustering enough. I think you're okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No,
Okay.
I knew I was in trouble. I was like, there's no way I can be short with Craig. It's like,
Yeah, it's a downside, yeah.
there's a certain
Uh,
level of impossibility. So I'll ask you this question
okay, sure.
because now it doesn't matter, right? I just sort of, do you know what the original pedagogue was in Greek society?
The original what?
Pedagogue. What role the pedagogue actually had?
Well, I mean, the short answer is no. I mean, I know a bit about Greek teaching and such, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming it was something pretty guidey, but that would be my
It
guess.
is guidey, but not in the way that you would think, right? The one of my former students, who knows more than I do, at this point, probably knew more than I did at the time. Um, we were having a conversation about it, and everything's pedagogy this, and in some ways,
Sure.
this is a discussion of pedagogy, right, and all these kind of things. And people assume the pedagogue was the teacher. The
Hmm.
pedagogue was actually the slave, and
Oh,
he was the
okay.
slave who led the children to school.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that
Weird.
metaphor, I think, well, I wanted to give you something for your day,
No, I love it.
um,
I didn't
as
know that.
payback, right? Then so he would say that the reason why then the purpose of pedagogy then is to lead someone to something rather than to
Like instruct them
instill
in
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
that. Amen.
yeah. I have never bothered to look to see if it's absolutely true though.
Who knows?
No,
It's
I did once, and I think yeah, but it's one of those things that I was like, okay, the great statements of pedagogy, talking about pedagogy all the time, and I never would have thought of that.
yeah. Oh, very cool. All right.
So
And hopefully it's true. If it's not, it should be.
that's right.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Julian. Very, very, very happy to always very happy to chat with you. And you are always a delight. And
Thanks.
hopefully, folks who are making their way through our series, I'm sure there are hundreds, thousands, nay, tens
Thousands,
of
I know.
thousands who will watch
Viral, I think.
order. We'll enjoy this chapter as well as it drops on us in the summer and nice and hot outside here in Texas, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, there you go. That's all I've got so far, and very much appreciate your time, man. Thanks a lot.
No. Peace, man.